Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:06 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up at 8:37, we're going to talk to you about Obamacare. We're still finding out what's inside that legislation and how it's going to cost you. Get ready to spend some money.
That's right, Brian Wilson. But first, we're going to talk with Representative Aric Nesbitt. He is a Michigan State representative. He was part of that big vote yesterday, which effectively turns Michigan into the latest right-to-work state. First, let's hear a little sound of what it sounded like outside the state's capital in Lansing yesterday. Wow, that's the sound of citizen journalist Stephen Crowder getting beaten up by a union protester there outside. I'm guessing, Representative Nesbitt, that it didn't sound quite as volatile inside the Capitol building there.
No, the state police did a wonderful job yesterday maintaining order in the crowds, and on the House chamber, we felt safe and secure.
It almost sounded like Michigan State had won the NCAA championship there, the way the fights broke out.
It was probably a few more people out on the grounds, but the police were able to handle it pretty well, and hopefully we have some good basketball teams here.
Let's say, well, the Wolverines are looking good this year. Actually, it's about time. Let's talk about this legislation itself. What exactly did you guys pass yesterday in Lansing, and Governor Snyder is poised to sign?
Yeah, well, the governor actually signed it last night.
Oh, he did. It's a done deal.
It's a done deal. It'll go into effect 90 days after signing it, after our last day of session. And so we passed it from the House yesterday. The Senate passed the bills last Thursday. Essentially, it makes Michigan the 24th freedom to work state, where union, working at a company or an organization, that union cannot be a condition of employment.
Now, what do you say to the people who say, listen, especially let's take the UAW for example. Obviously, it's probably the most powerful union in your state. The UAWs worked for decades and decades and decades to win certain work requirements, work conditions, a base salary, and some pretty remarkable benefits for their workers. They have spent a lot of time, gone through a lot of heartache. A lot of people went on strike, went without pay during those strikes to win those negotiations over the decades. And now a guy can come in and start at that same base salary and get all those benefits and not pay anything in dues to the union, who over the years has fought so hard to win those things. What do you say in response to that?
I think there's two responses. First, there's nothing in federal law that prohibits unions from negotiating contracts, which allows unions to represent members only. So if you opt out of the union, typically there are always exclusive contracts that everybody that works at the place that the union covers. They don't have to do that if they don't want to. And then the second point is that this legislation comes down to a pro-worker bill. I mean, we have First Amendment association rights in which we're able to say, what organizations we're willing to associate ourselves. I mean, $800 a year is a pretty high cost of being in a union and seeing what the benefits are coming from. And so this legislation is pro-worker because it ensures fairness through their freedom to join or not to join a union. It's pretty simple. If in the market the union's providing the service that the workers believe is important, then they'll absolutely pay up and be a member.
Well, there are a lot of unions in this country, and there are a lot of people who pay dues, and a lot of that money will go to target certain people in the next election cycle. And Representative Nesbitt, I would suggest that probably you're going to be in the crosshairs. Are you prepared for that?
Oh, forget about the next election cycle. There may be a recall effort.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, the state senators are able to be recalled at any time now, because in Michigan law, first 6 months, in the last 6 months of your term, you can't. We have a 2-year term, and so my new term starts in January. So it'd have to be halfway through next year before something's brought. But we do have recall provisions in Michigan, and you saw in Wisconsin, even with them pushing through legislation to provide taxpayer savings and some worker rights in Wisconsin, you still have a Republican majority in the state Senate and the state House, and tens of millions of dollars spent against Governor Walker without an effect. But in terms of the election itself, the next Democratic leader in the state House 2 weeks ago has said that if you pass this freedom to work legislation, that the Democrats are no longer going to work with any of us in terms of policy issues. You have somebody who says that this will mean all-out war. And what they're saying is that Trump politics is once again trumping policy with the Democrat minority here in Lansing. I think that's wrong. And also in terms of where's the fight? Who's taking the fight and using overboard language? You had a member on the floor saying that there will be blood.
Yeah, were you in the chamber when he said that?
I was in the chamber. I looked over to my seatmate and just shook my head. What are you supposed to say that? I mean,
how did you take that, Representative Nesbitt? I mean, you're sitting there, you're having a civil discussion and a public policy debate, and your colleague comes up there and says, "If you pass this, there will be blood." I mean, that's pretty blatant.
Well, with thousands of protesters outside, and protesters that tore down a tent of another group that was supportive of this legislation. There was a hot dog car, Mr. Tarver. He's our hot dog guy downtown Lansing, and there's pictures that were going around last night of him trying to collect his stuff as these protesters were all the way around chanting at him, not helping him at all. But basically his livelihood was destroyed.
Well, let me tell you something.
Really?
I'm from Michigan, and that could be a rallying point because whatever your position is on organized labor, we're all in favor of the best hot dogs, best hot dogs in the country.
So if he has his hot dog cart up next week, I know where I'm going to be shopping.
That's right. In fact, I wonder if he delivers.
We'll see. But I know it was making the rounds last night in the social media world, and it was just one of those scenes that just couldn't help but affect your heart. As just a good, solid guy that if you needed a quick hot dog, he was always there, always with a smile, and always a nice guy.
Michigan State Representative Aric Nesbitt is our guest, and he was sort of at the center of the storm there yesterday as Michigan became the latest right-to-work state, and it really is ground zero now for the latest in the organized labor's wars on a state-by-state basis.
Right.
It's happening. What do you foresee the benefits being for the state of Michigan by passing this legislation? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, I think there's two goals. One is I believe in individual rights in terms of individuals being able to choose whether or not they become part of an organization. So I think that first off is a philosophical belief in individual rights, and the second off is that we've seen over the last several years the population growth increases from freedom to work states have exceeded any of those non-freedom to work states. Michigan was the only state in the last census to lose population. So I'm, as a young person myself, I'd like to see more young people back here. Our state productivity and income growth, you've seen in freedom to work states that they've increased. You look at Indiana, they passed their law just this past spring, and they've already had over 90 businesses that have said that they're looking at Indiana specifically because of the changes in freedom to work laws.
President Obama came to your state earlier this week, and said that you are actually, this is really just a right to work for less, not a right to work, and you're actually taking unions' rights to organize away from them. If you could talk to President Obama, he's probably listening. He's here in the district. What would you say to him?
Well, if he was in D.C. at the White House, I'm sure he's listening to your morning show.
Yes, right. Of course. Yes, it goes without saying.
I think this is, we've taken a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to provide increased individual rights for people. And this is a philosophical difference. I think that the other side believes in collective rights, that organizations have rights, where I believe, and I think my colleagues believe, that the individual has rights. And I err on the side of the individual. That's what our Constitution, that's what our Bill of Rights does. And I believe that's what the Michigan legislature did and Governor Snyder did yesterday, was saying that individuals have these rights to say, hey, I don't want $1,000 a year taken out of my paycheck because I don't believe I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah.
Or you're spending money against people that I truly believe in.
Hey, Michigan State, we've got to roll, but I really appreciate you being here. I know it's been a tough couple of days for you. And can you just do me a favor? Watch your back, will you?
Hey, thanks, Brian. Larry, really appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Our pleasure. Thank you.